So in this video and upcoming future videos, we are going to see how we can use entity manipulation language or EML in short in ABAP Restful application programming model. So before starting technically how to use EML in ABAP RAP, let's first try to understand what exactly EML is and what are all the syntaxes and how the flow is. What is the difference in the technical flow when you make use of EML in ABAP RAP. EML stands for Entity Manipulation Language, and it's kind of a new language, we can say, but it's also a part of ABAP, or we can say it's a subset of ABAP language, and using which user can access the RAP business objects in ABAP program or the classes. Using the EML, we can make changes to the data of RAP business object, or we can read the data, we can modify the data, we can delete the data, we can update the data. So all crude operations are quite possible with the use of entity manipulation language or EML in ABAP RAP. If you see here this syntax, it is the main syntax which normally we use while we work with EML to create, update or delete the wrap BO object or the content. Now let's see what is the syntax we use to modify the business object or the content in ABAP RAP using EML. So the syntax is all the characters or all the words which you are seeing in a blue color. These are all standard ones, and means they will be constant, and the things or the words which you are seeing in the yellow color, those will keep changing based on your business object. So modify entities is a key and keyword, and then the root entity name. So modify entities of your root entity name, then entity keyword, and then provide the root entity alias name, which probably you define in your behavior definition. Now on the third line it says operation name. So operation name could be your create, update or delete, then from, and then you provide an internal table here which contains your data. For example, if you want to create something, your internal table will have all the data which you want to save. It can have whatever you want to update or you want to delete as well. Now the fourth line says mapped data, failed data and reported data. So these are all the written parameter for the modify statement, or we can say in the EML. Map data is we define an internal table here which will contain your key fields or whichever is created newly. So then failed one, if this statement fails or any of the operation which you are performing in these three, if that operation fails, then this internal table will contain your field information, detailed information. Now the third one is a reported data. This mainly used when you want to show any error message to the front end. Okay, so these are all three the returning parameter for modify entity statement. We have already seen this parameter. These are all ABAP EML response parameters, and these parameters are mainly used in EML, as we have seen, to get information about the statement execution result, whether it is a pass or successful, whether it is failed or any error message needs to be raised. So for failed, like this LT failed is our internal table, and this will contain details about the operation which is not successful or that cannot be processed. So all the failed details would be in this table parameter. Then for mapped, it contains a key mapping information, mainly contains the table key value. So this mapped response parameter is only available for modify entity or modify entities. It is not available for select or read entities statement. Now the third one is a reported. This is again internal table, and this contains any error message as a result of failed operation. And this is the same which can be used to report the error message onto the front end when you create a Fiori application basically. And all of these things are not new for us or the ones who are constantly following all of my videos. We have used these response parameters so many times in whatever previous videos we have gone through. The next thing is which we need to understand, and this is very important in EML, is ABAP EML commit entities. So commit entities is a statement which as a result of any modify statement which we have seen, insert, delete or update, the data doesn't go in the persistent state, and it is available in transactional buffer until the commit is triggered. It is true for any of the commit statement which we already known since long in the ABAP language. It's again the same thing. If you do not call the commit statement, then the data will not be saved into the database table, or it will not go into the persistent state. So commit entity is triggers ABAP RAP framework save sequence, and business object is changed using modify statement is saved in the transactional buffer until and unless you call the commit entities statement. Whatever changes you have made in any of the RAP business object, those will be saved in the transactional buffer. The saving of changed or created data to the database must be triggered, which is done by this commit entity statement. Okay, so why these commit entities or this commit statement is important in ABAP RAP? Because the way of saving the data in ABAP RAP is little different, and mainly it makes a difference when you use unmanaged scenario in ABAP RESTful application programming model. We haven't seen any example of unmanaged scenario. Whatever we have seen till now in ABAP RESTful application programming model, all are managed scenario, where the framework takes care of everything for you. You no need to create any, you no need to write any code for your CRUD operation or anything. But still we have seen so many example of EML in while triggering the actions or determinations, or all of those examples which we have seen in our other videos. So this save sequence is very important, and this save sequence triggers as soon as you call the commit statement, and this save sequence has certain number of different methods which gets triggered one by one in the sequence, which we are seeing here in the saver class. So very first method is finalize, then check before save, then clean up, and then clean up and finalize. So this is the same sequence which system will trigger to save any changes to the business object in ABAP RAP. So once the save sequence is triggered, this finalize is the very first method which gets triggered, in the save sequence, and the use of this method is to make any final calculations and data modifications to the business object. This method is the last chance to modify any data on the transactional buffer using EML modify request. So this as soon as this methods get triggered, this is the final place where if you want to make any change in your transactional buffer data, you can do it in the finalize method. The second method in the save sequence is check before save, and this method checks the consistency of your transactional buffer before the save method gets triggered, or the save method actually saves the data into the database. And to guarantee that everything is validated, this is the method where you can implement all of your final validations, and once all the validations are passed, then only the next save methods gets triggered. You can use this check before save method to finally validate your data before it moved from transactional buffer to the persistent state. The third method is save method, and as the name suggests, it will finally save your data from transactional buffer to the persistent state or to the actual database. And this method will only get triggered once finalize and check before save method gets triggered successfully or it completed successfully. The next method is cleanup method, and this method is triggers once the save sequence is completed or the save method completes the saving of data to the database table or to send the data to persistent state. The work of this cleanup method is to clean up the transactional buffer once the save method is completed. And this is the final method of your save sequence. Now the last method is cleanup finalize, and this methods also cleans or clear the buffer data or the transactional buffer data, but the main difference between the cleanup method and cleanup finalize method is this method gets triggered only if there is any issue or there is any error in the finalize or check before save method. So once if save method or cleanup methods gets triggered, this method will not be triggered. This will only be triggered only if there is any error in the finalize or check before save method. So this is what the save sequence, how the ABAP RAP framework saves your data from transactional buffer to the persistent state or to the actual database table. Now the next thing is ABAP read entity or ABAP EML read entity or entities. Now this is a little different than the modify statement which we have seen for insert, delete and update operation, but we so many times we need to read the entities as well, and the color coding again will work the same way as we have seen in the modify statement. So these are all the keywords, and whatever you see in the yellow color, those will be keep changing based on your business object. So read entities of your root entity name again, then entity keyword, and then your alias name. Again, this will be taken from the behavior definition. Then all fields with value. So these are all the new syntaxes which we have got with the hash, and then percent key is used to get the key field here. So your percent key, and Here you will have the key field and whatever value you want to compare it with. It's basically a where condition we are putting here. Now again we have the returning parameter, which are result, failed and reported. All three will again have the internal table with corresponding details based on the result of this read entities statement. So these were some of the high level information or the details about ABAP entity manipulation language. Now let's see how technically we can use ABAP EML on RAP business objects. Okay, so now we are in our Eclipse development environment, and to demo the ABAP RAP EML or entity manipulation language, since we are using ABAP Cloud trial version, so we need to create a class and where we will be creating different methods for the CRUD operations. So very first thing which we need to do is let's create a new class here. So we will provide a name zcl underscore rap underscore eml. Okay, and click on next. Already exist. Okay, so we got our class here and click on finish. Okay, so our class is now ready and it should be available inside the package and the source code library. So this one is our behavior implementation class of the existing solution, and this is the one which we have created newly. So in this class we will be writing all of our code and we will be adding, deleting and updating operations on the table or on the business object, this RAP business object. Now once the class is created, let's activate it. It is activated, and now to read the data from the cloud, we first need to implement one interface, and the interface name is IFOOADT underscore class. It's ADT and class run. So this is our interface, and now let's implement. Okay, so we have added the implementation, which is main method, and this is the place where we will be writing our code. Let's activate once more. It is activated, and now let's write. So very first thing which we are going to try here is we will be creating a new entry using modify statement. Okay, so very first thing is as we have seen, we based on the syntax of modify, we need to have some internal table or some location where we can put our data which we want to save to the database. So for that, let's create the internal table first where our data would be available. So IT student, the way we create internal table in EML is a little different, and it is based on the operation type which you want to perform. Okay, and these are all new syntax and best practice which we are seeing now. So IT student, and then we are creating an internal table. So we will be loading, we will be type table for, and we are doing a create operation here. Okay, Now this internal table will be of type your root entity, because we are modifying that root entity business object. Okay, so to get the root entity name, you need to go to your interface view and see this is our root entity and this is the entity name. So copy this and provide here. So now this internal table will be of type your root entity on which you want to perform the operations. So one thing is done. Now let's collect whatever you want to save in the create operation. Now again we will be using the new syntax value and then two round brackets since we are using a table here. Now you will see all of the fields are available which we want to save. So very first field name is first name, and whatever value you want to save here is first name. The second field is last name, and I want to save it as a last name. So I'm providing the values which I want to save into the database here. The next field is age, and age I'm giving 55. Then the next is course, and the course would be computers. Then course duration, and I will put it as 5, and the next field is status, and I am keeping it blank. Okay, so now we have done all of the fields, we have provided the details. Now the next important thing here is which we need to provide is your control structure. Now what is the use of this control structure is this will tell the framework which are the fields you want to actually save to the database. For example, you have first name, last name, age, course, course duration, status. All of the fields are there, but you still do not want to save, for example, the age field value or the course name value, right? Or course duration value. Any of the fields which you do not want to save, this is the place where you can make that clear to the framework, so that framework will not save that specific field value to the database. And now how this can be done is, again you need to provide the values with hash, and here again we need to provide the field name. So first name. Now I want to save whatever the value I am passing to the database. So for that we need to provide ABAP behavior, and I want this to be on. Okay, so if I'm making is on, it means framework will save the value of first name to the database. Okay, now let's put the same thing for the remaining fields. The field name is last name, then age, and after that course, and the course duration. One more is status. So for now I want to save the values of all of the fields which I am passing. If you do not want, then you just need to make it off like this. So now in this case course duration will not be saved even though we are passing it here. Okay, so for in this demo I want to save everything here. Let's do some formatting, and so now our internal table is ready where I have the data which I want to save to the database. Now finally we are on the place where we will be calling the modify statement, which will actually saves the data to the database table or to the persistent state. Now we have the syntax modify entities of, again our root entity name here. Okay, and then the entity. Now this value will be coming from your behavior definition. So let's go to our behavior definition for this, which is here, and our alias name is student. So copy this and provide your alias name here. Now the operation, which operation you are performing? You are performing the create operation. So provide create from. Now from where you want to create, where is your data? So our data is in this table. So create from this, and finally we will be adding our parameter. So first parameter is mapped. We will be defining it like lt mapped. Then the second one is failed. It would be like lt failed, and the final one is reported. Lt reported, and done. So this is having our data which we want to save, and this is the statement which will actually save your data to the database. Now finally, as we normally do in ABAP, we check if the statement is executed correctly or not. So in this case we can use this lt failed table to see if this has any value or not. If this has any value, it means the operation or modify statement or the create operation is failed. So for that, let's check if add the block. So if lt failed is not initial, it means it has something in this. For that we will be using outright, and the data which we will be showing is failed table. Here you can, if you want, you can provide a name to identify. Let's provide a name failed, and nothing else is needed. Now if this is not the case, it means your create operation is successful. Then we will be calling commit entity statement. So this is the statement which will trigger your save sequence, and your data will be saved here. Okay, now once this is done, we also want to show the saved data. So once, let's activate it first. Okay, our class is now activated. It means there is no syntax error. Now finally, whatever we are saving, let's see that data onto the screen. So for that we will be writing select from, and our table name is this one where our data will be saved. So select from this, and fields are, what are the fields here? So ID, first name, last name, age, course. Let's take some of the fields, not all of the fields are needed. So ID, then first name, then last name, age, course, and course duration. Let's take the status field as well, status, and then put some order by ID, our key field here. Now into table, and let's define the table here. LT, let's call it LT out. Now if size bar C is initial, bar C is initial, it means it is successful. So we will again use write, and this time we will be displaying our output here. Okay, and that's it. So our create statement is done. Now let's activate it. It is activated. Now to run this this class or the method, we need to press either F9, or you can go to this location, run as an ABAP application console. Click on this and see, we got our first record created here. So this is our ID field, this is first name, last name, age is 55, then course is computers, course duration is 5, and the status was blank here. Okay, now we also have a application here. Let's see if the data is getting displayed in this application or not. Let's refresh. Okay, and click on go. See, we got our data available here. Click on this and we are seeing the same data onto the object page as well. The student ID is ending with 37A81. Let's add another record here. So first name is code in means, and YT, age 55, course ABAP RAP EML, and course duration. Let's make the status as X here and activate. It is activated, and now let's go and run it again. See, so now we have got two records here, which is first name, last name, which was created earlier, and this is the new record which we have created, ending with DA99. So 81 and 99, A81, A99. Let's refresh here. Click on go. See, we got our new record created with code in means, YT, ABAP RAP EML, and status is yes here. Okay, so that's all for now in this video, and if you like the content, please consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you.